2008, New Jersey, April 13th. Goodrich Road South to Unionville Road. Today we were looking for the secret shelter. I had read about this in a book written by another hiker. I had read that it was around Smith Road, which we later found out was Goldsmith Road. We started our hike from Goodrich Road and headed south on the trail. We found a sign on the trail that said Wellwater, 500 yards. I thought that it was the secret shelter. However, there was no trespassing signs posted everywhere near it. We climbed up a hill and had a nice view of a field, and we could see High Point Monument to the south. Dave spotted a garter snake on the trail in front of him, and then I saw it too. We descended the hill to a beautiful little pond that was man-made. Then we descended more down the hill to Goodrich Road. We had only gone about a half a mile between the two roads. However, weeks of not hiking all winter, we got winded quickly over this little hike. They call this saggy city slickers after not hiking all winter. The weather became cloudy, cold, and windy, with a threat of rain coming soon, so we decided to turn around and head back to the car. It had already rained on our drive to the trail. On the way back, I saw a turtle on a log in the pond. He had already jumped into the water before Dave could see it. The sun had started to come back out, and it started warming up, bringing the annoying gnats with it, and it became less windy, so they were all over us. We were walking on Goldsmith Road when I spotted the secret shelter. We were happy to see it. It was in a beautiful area in a large field with 2 log cabins on it, and there was a donkey in the field. The cabins were nice with bunk beds, water, sink, and a shower, and one of them even had a stove, a fridge, and heater. This one was locked, but we were able to look in the windows. Someone had a sleeping bag rolled out on a bunk bed. We wanted to send an email to the owner to see if we could make a reservation when we came back to do more section hiking on the AT here. He had left some business cards in a box outside the cabin. We continued north on the AT to Unionville Road. This part had the most elaborate boardwalk over a swampy area that we have ever seen on the AT. The boardwalk was even raised up above the swamp, not just on the ground over the swamp, and it went a long way. The skunk cabbage was just starting to come out, and I have never seen purple skunk cabbage bulbs before. I saw my first marigold flower of the year here. There was also some wild chives that I had picked to put into our dinner for tonight. The sun was in and out, and the gnats were driving Dave nuts. He really hated those things, and he said that they were always in his eyes, ears, and up his nose. The first of the mosquitoes had come out in this section, and they were really active now. I believe that this area would be really bad for the thru hikers in the summer, when this area is very wet and infested with bugs. The high points of this day was seeing a red tailhawk flying over Interstate 84 on our way here. The views of High Point Monument, the impressive boardwalk, and of course the secret shelter. The low points was the weather when it had looked like there was going to be a cold rain shower coming. However, it never did rain, so the weather turned out okay. April 14th, Dunfield Creek Natural Area Parking Area, north to Sunfish Pond. We had a hard time finding where the parking area was from Interstate 80. We kept thinking that we would just get on the highway and then get off the exit ramp to the parking lot. We finally saw a white blaze and followed the blazes under the interstate to the AT parking lot. The trail went over a footbridge and then started a climb along the Dunfield Creek. The weather today was beautiful, with clear blue skies and cool temperatures. We were even starting to get a little chilly. We passed a couple that was on the trail with a dog. The dog started to bark at us as we were walking past it. I had to take off my hat because I had thought that it was scaring the dog, but no, it just kept barking at us. The AT turned to the left and climbed a wider trail up for about a mile to the junction of the Holly Spring Trail. Shortly after the junction, we saw a man dressed in camouflage sitting on the side of the trail with a camouflage rifle and a green net over his head. He told us that he was tracking turkeys all morning and that we were scaring them off. He said that there was also a deer laying down on the side of the trail beside the turkey in the woods. We did not see them, but he kept insisting that they were there. We did not know if he was going to shoot at them, and I asked him what he wanted us to do. He told us to just keep walking, because we had already scared them away. This is the Appalachian Trail, and Dave was upset and said that hunters should not be hunting near the trail, especially during hiking season. I had thought that the guy was a nutcase and that it was very creepy seeing someone all camouflage and hiding near the trail. The trail continued to climb, and another hiker had come up the trail behind us. He was very friendly with a southern accent. I had thought that he was a through hiker and made a comment to him about how he was already in New Jersey and that he must have started earlier on the trail. But he said that he had started last year on a through hike with his sister, but that she had broken her ankle and had to get off the trail, so he had wanted to pick up from where they had got off last year in New Jersey. However, she had broken her other ankle before the trip. So he decided to hike the trail alone and said that he really liked it when he was in the shelter alone. We told him about the secret shelter coming up. He said that it was in the AT hiking book as Jim's Place. So I guess that it is not a secret anymore. Tonight he said that he was staying at the AMC Center, which is where we are staying in the Mohican Center. We reached the backpacking site at the junction of the Douglas Trail. The area was very nice on top of the hill, but there were no tent platforms, just some flat spots to set up a tent. Shortly after, we reach a sign for Sunfish Pond. In August of 2005, we had met a through hiker at Osgood Campsite in New Hampshire, and I had asked him what was his favorite spot on the AT as far as the beauty went. He had told us that he would have to say that Sunfish Pond in New Jersey was the most beautiful pond that he had seen on the AT. This pond was supposed to be the southernmost glacial pond, very acid, with no algae, and with not many fish, just sunfish and 2 other kinds of fish. There was also no stream going in or out of the pond. We had seen some videos that other hikers had made showing rock sculptures that other hikers had made near the pond. Well, it was a nice area, and we had excellent weather, but it was just another pond. We saw no rock sculptures, and the walk around the pond on the trail was hard to walk on. There were lots of rocks to trip on, step over, and bang your toes on, so it was very slow going. We took the Sunfish Pond Trail around the other side of the pond and reached a forest road where we had thought that we would be able to move more quickly. Then we turned onto the Dunfield Creek Trail to get a little more variety on our hike as we were heading back. This trail climbed up again, and Dave said that he thought that we were going the wrong way because we had climbed up on the AT, so we should be going down. The trail reached a top and then descended. It turned out to be longer than we had expected it to be. We were supposed to be coming down to a stream, and we seemed to be pretty low, but there was no sign of a stream. We reached an open wood area that had the largest deer sighting that we have ever had. There were deers everywhere. We saw at least one very large deer, must be the mother, and lots of smaller deer that must be the fawns. They were close to the trail and kept looking at us. We sat down on a dead tree that had fell and watched them as they walked around in front of us. We got back up and had started to walk toward them. I was taking pictures of them, and they just looked at us and wiggled their ears, but they did not run away. We got some great pictures of them, and as we passed by them, the mother was off the trail to the side of us, only about 6 feet from us. What an experience. We finally found the stream and had made many stream crossings. There was supposed to be an old sawmill site here, but we had never seen any sign of it. We had a great garter snake experience. The snake had crossed the trail in front of us and was moving toward the stream. I got some good pictures of it. We reached Holly Spring Trail, and we were getting very tired about now. We kept saying just 1 more mile to go, but it seemed like more than a mile before we finally heard the highway. We were so happy to finally hear it because it meant that we were almost out. We reached the car and was so happy to see it. The day was great and the weather was perfect. We saw a lot of wildlife today. The high point of the hike was seeing all of those deers. The low point was all of the rocks around the pond. April 15th, Mohican Camp Road north to Millbrook Road. We were staying here in a cabin and was able to walk to the trail from our cabin, so we were able to onto the trail early. He Quit of the Woods was wonderful, and it was another beautiful day with blue skies, no wind, and cool temperatures in the 60s in the morning and in the 70s in the afternoon. We saw another hunter heading on to the AT in front of us as we got onto the trail. The trail climbed up to a rocky ledge that had great views. However, it was of mostly rich homes under the ledges. The view was nice and had views for about 2 miles out. We passed the hunter, who was in the woods near the trail making turkey calls. Later, E met a section hiker couple that were a little older than us. We had seen them yesterday as we were hiking around Sunfish Pond. They said that they had started in Georgia, but had hiked only 2 weeks in the spring and 2 weeks in the fall. They were using 2 vehicles, a truck that pulled a car behind it. They hike section of the AT when they can, and backpack section only when they have to. They are kind of hiking the AT the same way that we are, except we only have 1 car. We reached the Catfish Fire Tower. I had been looking forward to going up the fire tower. However, it was closed to the public, so I guess that it is still an active fire tower and is manned by the fire department. The trail joined up with the fire road, which is still used for the fire tower. The trail turned off the fire road and went through a nice rhododendron R. Then the trail kept crossing the fire road a few more times. We stopped at one of the road crossing and sat on a log to eat our lunch that was in a nice area that at one time looked like a picnic area. We reached Millbrook Road, which is our turnaround point. We decided to take Rattlesnake Swamp Trail back to the camp. Maybe we will see a rattlesnake from a distance. We entered into some more rhododendron and then into a nice hemlock forest. We were almost back to the camp when we heard some ducks and bullfrogs at Catfish Pond. The AMCC camps that we stayed in had lots of old cabins that looked in need of repair. Dave said that it looked like an old Boy Scout camp. We got back to the camp earlier than I had planned. However, we were tired and it was a great day. April 16th, Blue Mountain Lakes Road north to Buttermilk Falls Trail. We had thought that Blue Mountain Lakes Road might not be passable with our car. However, we discovered that it was a paved road. We had a hard time figuring out where the AT went north from the road. We saw a big sign and white blazes where it went south from the car, but did not find anything, marking where it went north from the road. We drove the road until we reached a parking lot and got out and looked around, but saw no white blazes here. We walked the road a short distance to where we saw a white blaze on a pole where it went south into the woods and finally found the trail. The trail started off very rocky. However, it was in a beautiful hemlock forest with lots of rhododendrons. We reached Long Pine Pond off the left side of the trail. There was a YMCA camp down a dirt road to the pond. Dave complained that the rocks were twisting his ankles, as we were surprised at the steepness of the trail over lots of pointy rocks. We reached a bog on the right side of the trail, but did not see or hear any wildlife in it. We crossed a dirt road and climbed up a steep, flat rock to a ledge to a wide dirt road with some views and no more rocks on the trail, just a smooth, flat walkway. We were getting excited because we knew that we were getting close to the Buttermilk Falls Trail, as it looked like this when we were here 2 years ago when we had come up Buttermilk Falls Trail. We had picked up our pace on this nice flat path and had reached the junction early, around 11 o'clock. We turned around and headed back about a mile to a nice view and sat down to eat our lunch. We saw some daffodils here and imagined that at one time there must have been a road here with a house and someone had planted daffodils here. There were lots of dirt road into this area. Blue Mountain Lakes Road south to our turnaround point. We reached the car at 1:25 and it was still early, so we decided to do about a half of the north side of the AT from the road to about 2:25. Then make a rock cairn for our turnaround point. This section of the trail started at a gate on a flat and wide forest road, so we were really humming up the hill on this section. We were pushing the miles even though we were getting tired from hiking the other side. My feet and back hurt, and Dave was still complaining about his ankles. This was so far my favorite section of the trail in New Jersey. It was a beautiful area, wide with open views along this dirt road with no rocks. We had great views of Fairview Lake, which looked like it had houses around it at one time. We saw some old telephone poles on the dirt road, and we saw a rock with the number 66 painted on it that must have been where a house was at one time. We saw more daffodils here, which we knew had to be planted near houses, and we even saw some forsythias here too. We really pushed the hike in this area to what looked like the end of the road because we saw that the trail was getting narrower. We saw an old cart like the one you would see at a farm in the woods beside the trail. The trail became rockier and narrower so that it no longer looked like a road, and we had started to slow down as it was getting more difficult to hike on. It had looked like this was where the original road had ended. I had thought that it would be interesting to see where the houses had been in this area. We could see another lake below, Sand Pond, and at around 2:25, we stopped to eat a snack and we made a stone cairn to mark our turnaround point. We will need to come in from the other side on our last day of our trip. We are going to be completing the Water Gap section of New Jersey, and we will have completed the section from the Pennsylvania line to High Point State Park. We headed back and had seen some deer crossing the trail ahead of us. Dave did not want to film them anymore because he said that we had seen enough deer on this trip. It is true that no encounter was ever going to be as close as the one we saw on the 14th. I had also taken pictures of the house sites with the daffodils on the way out, as now we were starting to hear the sounds of a lot of children below, and we also saw a large group of children running out of one of the old home sites. They must have arrived here when we were further down the trail on the way out. I had felt strange after the quiet of the woods all day to come out to a large group of people on the trail talking loudly. Most of the day we had not seen anyone else out here, which had been pretty terrific. The day was beautiful with blue skies and warm with the temperatures around 70 degrees and no wind. This was the warmest day of the trip so far. The gnats were active here in some areas, and we had seen some squirrels, turkeys, shadows of vultures soaring overhead on the ridge, and some birds. April 17th, Camp Road south to Sun Fish Pond. Hot, near 90 degrees today for the month of April. Wow. There was no shade here because there was no leaves on the tree yet. The sun was so intense that I could feel my hands getting sunburned. There was also a lot more of the pointed rocks in this section that hurt as we stepped on them. To make things worse, we had misjudged the mileage of this section a bit. We had started from our cabin and crossed a footbridge before starting a climb right away from the start of the trail. The trail was covered with small pointed rocks. It was difficult to walk on. We were already sore from the previous days of hiking, and the heat was just killing us and draining the remainder of our energy. This was the day that I was wondering why we needed to hike the AT, why we had to hike all of it, and why we're doing it with just one car. We had wonderful views from the vistas of Yards Creek Reservoir. There were little pools of water that looked like something that you would see at a fish hatchery. The woods here was all hardwoods, no pine trees here, and no shade at all. The trail continued to climb, and we were starting to get views of the other side of the Delaware River. We had seen a lot of people on this section of the trail. We even saw a lone thru hiker. Later on the trail, we passed a large group of youth hikers off the side of the trail. The trail had climbed to the top that had a rock pile to mark the top. We found another youth group sitting here taking a break, so we pushed on. We reached a lone pine tree and sat down here under the shade to eat our lunch. Later, Dave had set up a tripod to attach the video camera to film us hiking the trail for our hiking video. The youth group had come up the trail behind us, and he had to hurry up to take it down. We descended on the trail into a wet area. All I could think of was that we had to climb back up it. We had walked for what had seemed like miles in the hardwoods with no shade and the sun beating down on us over lots of pointed rocks. And to make it worse, we were out of water. I felt like I was walking a death march through the open woods. We reached Sunfish Pond, and I soaked my hot, sore feet in the warm water. It was not nice and sandy, but was full of leaves with dead logs in the water. I saw a salamander, or some kind of lizard in the water. Not really sure what it was. It was near my feet in the water. The sun here was so intense that was even awful near the water. We pushed it back to the camp, and it was just pure torture. We had to take a lot of breaks on the way back. We were just so drained from the heat. We met a thru hiker who asked us if we knew where the trail to the spring was. It was not marked well on the AT map, and we had missed it and had to turn back around so that we could filter some water. Bummer. The hike was awful as far as the heat and rocks. However, it had great views. We had made it back to our cabin around 5 o'clock, so it was an 8-hour hike. We saw no wildlife as it was even too hot for them to be out. The high point of this hike, well, I really can't think of anything except that we finished it. The low point, well, that was pretty much everything. April 18th, Millbrook Road north to the Stone Cairn we made on the 16th. This was going to be a quick hike, only about a mile each way as we were heading home today. We started the hike earlier, around 8 o'clock, and it was another hot day. The gnats were already out, and now the black flies were out too. The trail went to a beautiful pond, which I liked more than Sunfish Pond. This pond even had a beaver dam with some geese in it, making lots of noise as we were getting close to the pond. The trail climbed a hill and had reached a power line clearing. It was very warm here. We walked along a rocky ridge that overlooked a sand pond. We reached our rock cairn, where we now have finished the water gap section of the trail. We had to head home now, but I will still miss the hike here. The quiet, being in nature, and no worries or responsibility, just the walk and the woods. Yes, some parts was hard, and I had some doubts about hiking the trail. Overall, we did have a great trip, and we love the AT, and will miss it when we leave.